help me welcome Mr. Bryan Swanson with Bryan's Top 5 Tips for Working with a Contractor.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Nice to have you here this evening. How many people have worked with a contractor before? Just about everybody. I'm glad that there's a few people that have had the experience here in the audience. I was hoping to kind of corral a lot of people with this topic. So, my topics, there's actually 3 that I'm going to cover today. I was going to cover 5, but it was a little bit longer than anticipated, so I'm just going to cover my top 3 topics on working with a contractor. So number 1, when working with a contractor, you want to do your research. You want to find out about the specific contractor, what type of work have they done, and for this example, let's go ahead and use, like we're going to remodel a kitchen, for example. So if we're going to remodel a kitchen and we're out there and we're looking for a contractor and we're doing that research, we want to talk to friends and family, we want to talk to anybody who's done kitchen remodeling. We'll pick a couple, we'll bring them in, we'll talk to them. We want to see if we get along with them, which is very important. You want to be able to communicate and get along with them so that when there's hard stuff coming up, you'll be able to talk about it reasonably without any hot heads or anything like that. So you also want to check for pictures and see if they have any work that you may be able to go visit and look at. So if they've done a job down the road, maybe you can go down and take a look at it. And then find out also how long they've been in business, how long they've been doing remodeling, if it's kitchen specific or bathrooms or whatever the case may be. Now another line of that kind of goes a little bit further is the subcontractor role. Now is this a general contractor that works here, hires out the subcontractors, and then leaves the site and then goes to another site and does the same thing? And then what happens is you don't really have a supervisor on site. What you have is you have multiple subs that just have a general idea of what's going on. So the continuity doesn't flow quite the same. Or you have another contractor that does some of the work themselves. They may not do everything, but they hire out subs that do specialty work, which may be electrical, plumbing, whatever the case may be, but they're there on site. I believe that the difference between the two is the person that's in the trenches and kind of doing some of the work will be able to manage the crews as they're out there and be able to handle problems as they arise, instead of there's all of a sudden a problem, they're calling the general contractor's not on site, and a delay happens. And this happens all the time. So if you've been in the contracting world, which actually I am, this happens very often. And sit and wait, it goes on for hours. You would just be amazed. So when you have a decision maker there, it flows a lot better. Now the second thing is have an emergency fund. So the emergency fund is for anything that may happen. Now you always have to plan for the possibility that something's going to happen. In my opinion, as I've seen it a lot, maybe about 90% of the time, something else happens. If you're going to open up a kitchen and do a remodel, and let's say it's a 20-year-old property, you open up the roof, the ceiling, because you want to elevate the kitchen, it's an 8-foot ceiling, you want to elevate it to 10 feet, and put a lighting in there. When you open it up, you might find out that there was actually a little bit of a drip and a leak in the roof, and then you've got all these boards that are saturated that you need to repair, which could be $600, and then the labor and the insulation, whatever the case may be. So you could be a couple of $1,000s out on other repairs. So, or it could be something like opening up the floor. You pull open the floor and then you realize there was a leak underneath the refrigerator. Something like that. So you need to have an emergency fund to be prepared so that you can still get your dream. And what I mean by that is that if you have a kitchen that you're remodeling and you want granite countertops and you want a specific kind of sink, you don't want to give that up, because all of a sudden now you have to spend $1,000 on the roof and $1,000 on the floor just to bring it up. to the level to put in the materials that you need. So have that emergency fund in place and anticipate something is going to happen. And if it doesn't, then use that money to go to Vegas. Now the third thing is put things in writing. You want to have everything in writing when you're working with a contractor. You want to have it all spelled out. You want to have a beginning date. You want to have an end date. You want to have your expectations lined out. I like to see everything itemized. I'm a contractor. I itemize everything. So that way the customer knows exactly the product that they're getting, and they know exactly how much everything costs, from the labor, the freight, to each individual item as it goes down. This just makes it easier for you. If you have each individual item, and if for some reason they deviate, you're out there looking at the product and you're like, well, this isn't actually the type of paint that we ordered. This is a different type of paint. They could give you a lower grade product if you don't have it all itemized down. And so you want to be just kind of aware of that as you're doing your walkthroughs and stuff like that. And having it in writing holds them to that standard, so that they have to go out and get the proper equipment or proper material to be able to finish off the job. Now other things, I like to put other things in there as well. So if you've got gentlemen carrying stuff through your house, and you have hardwood floors, you've got a nice door, well, you don't want them to bang it into the door frame and then scuff the floor on the way and then blow dust all over the living room and the kitchen table and stuff like that. So you need to have your contract as well clean up all debris. Anything you break, you pay for. Anything you dirty, you clean up. I take a picture of everything before you enter the property so that we know what everything looks like, so there's no discrepancy. And then when you're out there doing your walkthroughs, you're out there often, which allows you to be able to catch things as they happen. So all of a sudden there's a small hole in the wall because somebody dinged a board into it. Well, you want to be able to say that right away. You don't want to say it a month or two down the road and say, oh, hey, there's a hole in the wall and there's a scuff on the floor. That's a little harder to overcome. So as you're out there and you're overlooking everything, you can point it out right away. But it kind of goes back to having everything written down, so that way it's all itemized, all the lines are there, and you can check it off and cover yourself. It's really about covering yourself and the contractor too, but more about yourself. So my top 3 tips are research, have an emergency fund, and get it in writing.